Welcome into 11 Personnel, presented by Monticello Bank. Nick Roush and Adam Luckett back in action for another afternoon edition of the podcast as the transfer portal continues to swirl, and we're learning about new potential Kentucky football targets each and every day. Luckett, I describe the portal as it kind of comes in waves, and we went through the first wave of departures. That seems to have crashed. It broke and it crashed on the beach. And now it's a little bit calm. And we're seeing some off in the distance that will look pretty good. So I'm grabbing my boogie board and getting ready to surf it. Except I don't get the boogie board. I just body surf. Body surfing expert over here. So we're going to body surf this next wave of arrivals that's incoming to Lexington.
Yeah, I think we're what does Mark Pope say? Gathers data.
Yeah, we're gathering data.
We're gathering data right now and seeing where it goes. We're starting to get some intel about what's going to happen, who's on campus, all of that good stuff. And then commitments are going to start flying off the handle, not only for Kentucky, but for a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
And then I always, I think it's comparable to NFL free agency. Use the term waves. I think that's a good way to put it because that's how it's described in their sport, at least, which is somewhat similar to this, where you've got your big ticket guys that go first and then teams move down the board, the tier list, right? And it's similar to that, but you have new entrants in the portal where the guys are free agents at the start, where things
right.
You get new information that changes everything. And that's kind of where they are right now. And then again, we're gathering data and trying to find out what's real and what's not.
Speaking of new entrants and consistency, one thing that's consistent is our friends at Monticello Bank. Proud to have our presenting sponsor. They're running it back in 2025. They aren't hopping in the portal. They are locked in with 11 personnel because they want to remind you that it's a bank where people matter. They're putting their people first at Monticello Bank, which I guess it'll be 129. It'd be great if we could get to 130 years of Monticello Bank with 11 personnel. About to be 129 years of servicing the Commonwealth, giving you the best rates for all your personal financial needs. Monticello Bank is where people matter. You can visit them in their brick and mortar locations. I know the flagship's on North Hurstbourne Parkway in Louisville, but they got locations in 28 different branches in 14 different counties across the Commonwealth. You can also visit them online at mbcbank.com to see what kind of they can do for you. Put the numbers on your side. Monticello Bank, proud presenting sponsors of 11 Personnel. We're happy to be partners with Monticello Bank, member FDIC, equal housing lender. I have a feeling that some of these transfer portal players, once they put pen to paper, they're going to need to stop at Monticello Bank and deposit some checks because that's how this thing works. Briefly, before we move on to this weekend's visitors and maybe who we've got on commitment watch, just wanted to kind of shut the book because I think aside from waiting on Brock Vandegrift to say something, he's out in the woods hunting somewhere. The 19 departures feels like we're done with that for now. You might get some a late one that gets unhappy that somebody gets brought in, but for the most part, that's probably done for the time being.
Yeah.
I thought the number was going to be a little bit higher, but 19 is the final number, and I think we're at ease for now. Ready to move forward with whoever is coming into the fold, which it is funny how it's like, okay, well, they like this guy. Oh, yeah, but here's this other guy. They might like that guy more. It's funny how every day it really is just like new players, new something. And shout out to our guy, Jacob Polachek, because I woke up in our group chat this morning, Luckett, and y'all were talking about somebody, and I'm like, who is this? And it was some guy that Polachek had scoop on that was visiting today. He got that at 11:20 last night. Like, buddy, I had been conked for an hour. I couldn't go
Yeah.
another
He
second.
if you were on KS board late last night in all the basketball madness, we had his name in our recruiting notebook as a guy we're monitoring, but things move really, really fast this time of year. So about 30 minutes after that, Jacob reported that he was visiting. And so, yeah, again, timestamps are very important this time of year. If you don't get the intel, or if you don't get the information right away, it may be useless information if you wait too long. And so we're trying to keep you up to speed as fast as possible. But I do want everyone to know that because I had people get on me at Twitter a few weeks ago, not a few weeks ago, it feels like a few weeks ago, but this was like 4 days ago. I tweeted out when one of the receivers left, I said, "This is who's left in the receiver room." Anthony Brown-Stevens was still in there.
Yeah.
And then he enters the portal like in the afternoon. So I had 12 people, 15 people, 18 people be like, "Oh, that's not how many scholarship players are in the receiver room." I was like, guys, timestamps. Help me out here. Give me a little bit of benefit of the doubt. But that's just the state of things we're in. Things are moving fast, trying to keep up to speed. It can be information overload at times, but I do say that's usually the first week or so. After that happens, we kind of have a good feel for where everything is. But we're in the information gathering, I think, process right now, and we're trying to learn what the actual kind of portal board looks like for them over there. We're learning a little bit more each day.
Speaking of timestamps, who do you think is quicker? I know we had a big rivalry with Shams and Woj. That's moved on. I think we've got a new one, and that's Zenitz versus Nakos. Who do we think? I've got both the notifications on. I think our guy Nakos is beating out the former On3 reporter Zenitz for most guys when it's coming to portal entries. It's close. It's like a minute.
I just want to see their screen time stats. I don't really care about that. Just can Pete and Matt, can they just, when that comes on Sunday, just screenshot it and send it to the people. Let's see what the screen time is.
I'm wondering too the setups. Are we multiple screens, multiple computers, multiple phones? Like I'd be fascinated to see that. But Pete Nakos, if you aren't following him, he's done a great job keeping everybody up to date with the portal. Before we get into the players, just wanted to say a few things. The head honchos, Wilt Fong and Nakos, every morning they're dropping kind of national intel pieces. And, it's not always a ton of players specifically related to Kentucky, but that's a good way to start your day. I've been trying to synthesize the day's information, the information from the day prior at that 10 o'clock slot each morning, where it's like, hey, here's what happened. Here's what we're looking at today. And I'm getting a little bit silly with it because it is a silly season. But that's happening there. And then if you want the latest, just pew, 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 where like the news is flying fast and furiously, that's on KS board. If you aren't a member of KSR Plus, UK1 will get you on there for 2 months for $1.
If only the listeners could have seen your conversation with On3's graphics department. To put it as simple as possible, it was this. Peak, I don't know if you can pull that up if you go to Nick's portal notes so you can see.
Yeah, go to my portal diary. Yeah.
So, because this is kind of important. Nick was asking, basically, I think he was just asking, like, is this type of format okay? Like, will this work if I do it?
Will this be legal?
Will this be legal?
Yeah, I don't want us to get sued or somebody come after me because of my artwork on my transfer portal diaries post.
But our graphics department was like, that picture looks really bad. I don't think that looks good. You sure that's what you want to use? And Nick was like,
it might take me a while to make that look good. I was like, no, you don't understand. I don't want it to look good. I want it to look bad.
Yeah. And so that's
I think Marina took personal offense to that, Luckett. I think she was
did.
like,
when I got on the Slack channel and read that conversation, I had a good laugh yesterday.
This is like her entire profession is to make graphics that look good. And I'm like, no, you don't understand. I don't want it to look good. I want it to look silly. Because this is a silly time of year. This is a very very silly time of year. So let's go ahead and get to it. I don't want to make the people waiting. It's not the most important, but you mentioned the receiver off the jump that we had updates on late last night. Horatio Fields. Love the name, first and foremost. As John Short would say, is akin to Justin. Just love the name from the jump. But he's one of a couple guys that they're targeting to play X receiver because Dane Key is in the portal. And this is the first one they were able to get on campus. Like, what do we know about Horatio Fields?
Yeah, BioBlast went up this morning on him, KSR. Basically, to me, Nick, this is the Dane Key replacement. Big-bodied X receiver, very good target in between the hashes. Nearly, I think 40% of his receptions this year came in between the hashes. Really good hands and a good contested catch guy down the field. You can see some clips in that post. But to me, it's the Dane Key replacement. Both 6'3" receivers, both can play X, both can win 50-50 balls, and both will probably win and record receptions on in cuts. This is a guy was undervalued recruit. Guy Wake Forest offered right before signing day, the 2021 cycle. Goes to Wake, red shirts, battles injury, finally gets a chance to start this year and has a really good season for what wasn't a good passing offense. He visited Duke. First off, went to Duke first, was on campus when Darian Mensah was there, the Tulane quarterback. He's got a visit scheduled for Auburn, but Kentucky gets him on campus today. And that's a guy I think, we talked about the need for an X receiver. I think he checks that box.
The other guy that was mentioned was Nazir. Was it Hughes? What? The Cal kid. I'm sorry. Naziah Hayes.
Let me pull up the spreadsheet. It's Naziah Hunter.
Yes. Damn it. Yeah, I was just glad he took me to the Calgorithm yesterday. But that one, he's probably going to visit it somewhere else first. So,
he's going to have a lot of options. He's going to be one of the, at least early, he's one of the more higher valued, I think, wideouts in the portal.
The one that I really wanted was Reggie Virgil, Maction anytime touchdown GOAT. I cashed 2 Maction Tuesday night bets with Reggie Virgil, but he's one of those I don't think Kentucky's even considering because of the Miami Ohio receivers getting so much run elsewhere. And I think it's important to note to our listeners that for a lot of these guys, particularly not the big fish, for the sort of middle tier, this first weekend's the most important. Wherever they go, they're probably going to go to, right? I know that things have somewhat changed. It used to be like that for every position. I think I think almost all of those kind of middle tier guys, it's you get them on campus early, there's a good chance you land them. Whereas the big ticket guys, I feel like it's a they're kind of looking around. They're trying to inflate their value. They're going to the negotiating table and taking all of their visits because they can. So that's where, for a lot of these, we're gearing up for some commitments to happen on weekend 1 because things do move so quickly in the portal.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. There's also the aspect I need to lock a spot down.
That's true.
I think that plays a big role in these commitments happening so fast.
Somebody
and
might
this
take your
process,
spot.
well, this process is so sped up that you have to really consider that, and you just want to get a decision done so you can prepare. Look, I need to find an apartment. I need to, do this. I need to plan to move to this place because I need to be there here in a week, 2 weeks. And so all of that plays a role, and this is speed dating. And so recruitments go fast, decisions happen fast.
Do we know if speed dating still exists? Could you and I don't need to go speed dating, but well, man, we don't have any single gals or guys in KSR. But let's say my younger brother, he's a single guy. If I wanted to go help him find a lady, do they still have speed dating like in 40-Year-Old Virgin? Could you show up to the Hilton and do a round of speed dating?
There's a thing called an iPhone. they have these apps called Tinder and whatever the new ones are. That is speed dating, essentially.
Well, but like that's what I mean. Did those replace speed dating?
I
This
think
is a
so.
very important question.
Yeah, anything that replace anything is in our pocket. It's all in this thing
Well,
right here.
if any of you all have ever gone speed dating or know if speed dating is available, just hop in the chat. These are questions we need answers to before we get back into this weekend's visitors. Kentucky volleyball up 2-0, tied up in set 3. We're looking to sweep Missouri to advance to the Elite Eight. That would be awesome. Would be really cool. And if they can somehow pull off the stunner, we could see them playing in the Final Four at the M Center next weekend. So that would be cool. But just wanted to give a shout out to Craig Skinner's squad. Hopefully they can close out Mizzou and advance to the Elite Eight. All right, other visitors for this weekend. Who we got up next? Let's save the offensive tackles for later. Oh, we talked about Landon Watson the other day, right? Did we talk about him?
I think so.
Okay. So he's visiting this weekend, the Marshall linebacker. There's potential for a commitment there. And there's one other before we get to the offensive lineman. One other. Sam Green, the USC edge.
Mm-hmm.
Tell us a little bit about this guy who started his visit to Kentucky today. Unlike a lot of players they've been recruiting, this one has 3 years of eligibility. A lot of these early targets are 1-year guys.
Yeah, Sam Green, DMV native, spent 2 years at USC, redshirted his first year, was a rotation player. Here his second year, got 20 or more snaps, I believe, in the last 6-7 games for the Trojans. Big thing for him. I think he's more of an undersized edge, so there's that you have to deal with. But I think you watch him on film, you just don't know how good of a pass rusher he could end up becoming because of the size concerns. But he plays with some power. He plays with some burst. He plays with motor. Physically, he looks like a guy that could come in and give you snaps, I think, right away. He held up well against Big Ten competition. Big Ten, they've got good linemen. So he's a guy I think, all right, we lost all these edge guys. We need a starter, and I think we need kind of a second guy to play. I think Sam Green's an excellent second guy. Like, if he's like your third edge or whatever, or if he's the guy like supplementing snaps at that jack position, I think you're in really good shape. We're seeing some other edge targets emerge, but he's a guy, again, like, you lose a Noah Matthews, Nick. This is a guy like where the coaches talk about where you have to replace guys you lose to from a depth standpoint.
Correct.
I think he kind of feels that. Minnesota's in on him, I believe. Georgia, he's got to visit the Georgia Tech scheduled. I believe that's one Kentucky's probably going to want to wrap up this week. And again, I think he's a guy that will help and will play. You know, I could see him playing north of 250, 300 snaps next year. And if they miss on someone, I think he could start for them. But I think probably the plan is this would be a really good number 2. Let's find a starter. But if we can find a starter with him, maybe have 2 kind of co-starters, he could be part of that. And so I think, again, this guy's a good player, and he's young. But he's shown development so far, I think, to this point in his career. It's just, again, the big question is kind of his length and measurables is the question I have.
So there's 2 defensive guys on the board for this weekend. We know of a few more they're targeting that they're trying to get on campus. I know Bryce Pollock's been mentioned with some other schools, but apparently the interest hasn't faded, even though he hasn't set up a visit yet.
Yeah, he was at Michigan State earlier this week.
There's a few other defensive linemen that they appear to have some serious interest. But I want to move to the trenches because that's where a lot of the focus has been so far. I think Kentucky's really spraying the board and really casting a wide net where it feels like every day there's another guy. It's like, oh, they're looking at him. Oh, they're looking at him too. The most recent – and here's the thing too is I like that you're like, oh, I could be tucked into that guy. I don't like all of them, but I think the most recent one is probably the most attractive one for me, and that's Bowling Green All-MAC offensive tackle Alex Walschlager, who That's an offensive lineman ass name if I ever heard it. He's a 3-year starter at right tackle, 2 All-MAC selection, a team captain, first team All-MAC last year, 6'7", 300 some odd pounds. He'll be visiting this weekend. It'd be nice to take care of right tackle early, and then maybe you got to do some fighting over for left tackle. But I haven't done enough digging to know who else is potentially like who else he's looking at or whatever because he just entered the portal yesterday. But Alex Walsh here, he's got a lot of proven production as a 3-year starter and is an exceptional pass blocker. Like it, so I like the kid, the Bowling Green Falcon that's going to be visiting this weekend.
Yeah, we've talked about this a lot, Nick, this week. The size on these offensive line targets is notable. Like they're going after guys 6'5", 6'6", 6'7", 6'8", 300 pounds. Like they're getting size. And Wolfschlager checks that. On his Bowling Green roster, they list him at 6'7", 305 pounds.
Pretty big boy.
He played right tackle this year. He's been strictly a right tackle, a 3-year starter for Bowling Green. He really made a big jump up this last year. Really showed progress as a player, and is now probably getting on the NFL radar here. Indiana, Northwestern are 2 other schools I've seen linked to him. Sounds like Kentucky might get the first visit for him, and that's key. Again, I think he was all-MAC player for Bowling Green. Bowling Green was probably the 3rd best team in the MAC. They were right up there, I would say, in Tier A with Ohio and Miami, Ohio this
just
season.
missed
If they
out
beat
on the MAC championship.
They lost last week to Miami, Ohio at home. This is a guy could be a plug-and-play starting right tackle for you. And then this is a guy where Malachi Wood could back up, I think, for a year. So he could come over, take over that right tackle position. This is a player I think Kentucky will push hard for and try to get a commitment from. And maybe he'll even get to see some Kentucky-Louisville hoops this weekend if he's on campus for that game.
I noticed, too, that the on-3 bio had him at 6'6", 250. Like, he really grew up, and part of that's because he was one of those guys. I think he was a basketball player. Didn't play high school football until his junior year. So still some room to grow. You mentioned that jump from junior to senior year. Could be a significant addition to the Big Blue Wall. A couple other players. He's the one we know will be here this weekend. Derek Simmons, we talked about it on Tuesday. You can go back and listen to him. He'll be here on Monday. That's turning into a big-time recruitment. And then Gunnar Hansen is another left tackle who's told KSR that he plans on visiting next week. Now, he's got to get through a Florida State visit. So there's that factor you've got to be able to overcome. But another 3-year starter who actually has been at Vandy, started his career at left guard, kicked out to left tackle, and he won all the lineman awards after the Alabama game because he played particularly well in Vandy's upset of Alabama. So that's another a left tackle that Kentucky's potentially pursuing. And I don't think he can be as good as Ray Davis, but that last Vandy transfer turned out all right for the Cats.
Hansen, he was in the Petrino switch short side, strong side, weak side tackle last year. They switched their tackles. Vanderbilt did. So he played left and right last year.
That's weird.
Yeah.
That's really weird.
Yeah.
They used to do that too?
Wow. Petrino used to do it like back in the old, beginning of his Louisville tenure. That was more common back then. Now no one does it, but he's played right and left. Derek Simmons has played right and left. So your positional versatility potentially you're seeing with some of these targets.
Something to keep an eye on. There's also an Arkansas offensive guard who I think was on campus yesterday, in Josh Braun. Another name to keep an eye on. He was all SEC selection 2 years ago at offensive guard. So Kentucky, they're really trying to cast a wide net because that is the first priority is fixing that Big Blue Wall, Mr. Luckett.
Yeah, I think I think Jalen Farmer probably got a starting spot locked in for next year. I would assume they're not ready to punt on that. He had a good first year.
Mm-hmm.
He fits this big body type that I'm talking, like 6'5", 300+ pounds. Josh Braun fits that. He was a quality SEC starter this past year at Arkansas. You would feel pretty if you get him. I think if you're Kentucky, you would feel pretty good about your starting guard situation.
I would think so as well.
And I also wonder if Braun, if you get him, does that force a move? Does someone leave your roster?
Yeah, and I didn't know too. Do you think if there was any chance they'd be like, "Oh, well, come here and learn center and try to get in the NFL"? Yeah,
I've thought that. We'll see.
yeah. So that's always another that can really sweeten the pot because that position's a little bit more valuable than just being an offensive guard to NFL scouts. So curious how all of that will unfold in the trenches. There's another player, Wallace Unamba, a New Mexico tackle. He's supposed to visit next week. So a few others on our radar. You can get all of it over on KSR Plus. We'll be updating stuff as it comes out. Are there any other portal targets you wanted to talk about before we kind of shift into maybe a little schedule talk, maybe a little coaching carousel talk?
Yeah, Fluff Bothwell, Kentucky, reached out, late to the party. You have to worry about where things are with Ahmad Hardy. You have to worry if it's too late.
Yeah.
In the Bothwell pursuit. So where does that leave you at running back if that happens? Like I've mentioned, Nick, you're prisoner of the market. You can only land what's in the portal. So we still don't. Again, we're still in the gathering information phase. We don't know like what running backs are all on the market, and so that's something to watch. That they're in an interesting, I think, pivot point if they miss on these two Sunbelt guys who are both good players. And then quarterback.
That one's fun. One's fun.
We'll see. They'll use Mark Stoops' phrasing because it's very, very quiet on that end. I would imagine there's a lot of just UK talking with agents.
Yeah.
I'm beginning to think that who they want's probably not even in the portal because we probably would have got whiff of it yet or already.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's not even a sniff of guys visit, like they're going to have any quarterbacks visit this weekend.
I just threw out, Malachi Nelson's entering the portal, and I felt obligated to mention that Bush recruited him to Boise State, but I'd be shocked if they pursued that guy. He was the former number one player, but I would that's not going to happen.
I agree.
Yeah, that's not going to happen. I'm trying to see if there's one guy who, he's not even in the portal yet. So, interesting. I think that's where we're at. I think we're waiting for guys to enter the portal, and then that'll be
the
one
same
of those
could be
guys.
maybe be true. Same could be true at running back. Maybe there's a guy they really want that just hasn't got in there yet.
Yeah. I thought it was unusual that Bothwell told Jacob that Chris Collins was the one who reached out. That's weird. Why is the DB coach recruiting their running back? It's weird. It's weird.
Yeah, even I think it's Vince. The Vince angle, it's been kind of quiet.
Yep.
Usually
there hasn't been any Bush angle, but yeah.
but usually Vince, we know who he's recruiting, right?
Yeah. And it's usually a bigger, it's one of their bigger guys. Some of their bigger guys. So, yeah. Maybe we'll find out in the coming days. We're still gathering data, Mr. Luckett. We're still gathering data.
Gathering data.
Where you can, if you gather enough data and you make the right selections, you can win money. Real American dollars with Prospects. Prospect, it's the best daily fantasy sports app on the market where you choose a few squares, pick more or less, and you can win big. And like it right now, they're offering Patrick Mahomes 1 passing yard, and you will complete that square. Over more than a half passing yards, and you will complete that square. So I'm gonna end up using that tonight with a little Thursday night football action. I'm glad that my team is not playing on Thursday night football because they lost to the Browns when they did it. I'm glad they're not playing another late divisional game on Thursday night. But I do love the divisional games. We got a great one tonight with the Niners and the Rams. Might use a little Puka Nakua touchdown. Kyron Williams has been scoring. I think he's got touchdowns in like
Yes.
14 of the last 17 games.
Got him on the fantasy team. It's been a good year.
Oh, you sucker. You know what? He's been awesome. That game Saturday was awesome. Usually, Kyle Shanahan and Sean McVay, they pull out all the stops. So this should be an exciting game tonight. And make sure you get in on the action with Prize Picks. When you use promo code KSR and play $5 in lineups, you're going to get $50 in Prize Picks bucks loaded into your account. That's promo code KSR. Play $5, you get $50 into your account. Terms apply at prizepicks.com. Download the app today. PrizePicks, the best place to get in on the action with daily fantasy sports. Look, you informed me before the show started that bowl games start on Saturday, which completely shocked me. I was just Army Navy. I thought we were go Army beat Navy, but apparently not.
We could do both. There's nothing wrong with doing a little Army Navy before the Kentucky Louisville game. Might have to have it on second screen for the end. And then closing our night out with Western Michigan versus South Alabama. Nothing wrong with it.
Ooh. I doubt is Fluff going to play for South Alabama?
Don't think so. But Gio Lopez, who's kind of a young star quarterback, he's not going anywhere. So he'll be playing, and Western Michigan has a good quarterback, Hayden Wolf, who will be playing. So we little Major Applewhite versus Lance Taylor action. In for a good one. Mac versus Sunbelt. Let's ride.
If it wasn't clear enough on what the bowl games are before the transfer portal, like people talked about opt-outs are in it, the portal has done significantly more to pull players out of these games. I mean, you used to get a couple of big name opt-outs here and there, a dozen a year maybe. I mean, there's a dozen a team because they're just not a part of the team anymore. Now, you'll see some instances where guys are in the portal and they still play. You had that a couple of years ago with Kentucky in the Citrus Bowl, but
Arkansas, what are they going to do in their bowl game?
Their whole offensive line's gone.
I mean, they play Texas Tech. Texas Tech will probably be – Texas Tech doesn't have their offensive coordinator. But they'll be, I would assume, decently fired up for that opportunity. Yeah, I did. Yeah. What does that look like?
It's going to be something. I find it fascinating that some of these playoff teams are going to have guys like Kenny Dillingham's like, yeah, go to the portal, get you a spot, just keep playing with us. I'm cool with that.
So yeah, I think
that's how these playoff teams handle it.
Yeah. It's just interesting. Very like Louisville has a good year, ends on a really high note, and then Tyler Shuck and Ja'Cory Brooks opt out of the Sun Bowl, and so we know that whatever their starting quarterback next year isn't on the roster. Who their wide receiver one will be probably isn't on the roster. So how do they go about that? It's just very interesting. You just have to take them for what they are. They're just random football games in these weird venues, and just try to enjoy them. Some of them have fun trophies. Some of them eat Pop-Tarts. Yeah, there's Mayo Bass. Just enjoy them for what they are, because they can get very, very wonky. Like Ole Miss, I would imagine they're going to have a ton of opt-outs for the Gator Bowl. Duke's not going to have their quarterback. Malik Murphy's in the portal. Like, you're just going to have weird games, but it's football. Let's just try and enjoy them.
Oh man, we're going to enjoy them. We're going to get to your questions too. We took a lot over on KS Board that we're going to get to, but first, you mentioned the Mayo Bath. I loved after Bill Belichick was hired by North Carolina, that became everybody's first go-to was, oh my gosh, there's a chance this dude could get covered in mayo one day. He had the introductory press conference today. Bubba Cunningham pulled out a suit jacket with the sleeves cut off. I'm fascinated by it. I kind of think that there's a chance it might work. I love the fact that
I'm with you.
Yeah, because in a normal, like if this was 20 years ago, I don't think it makes any sense. But I think for Bill Belichick, this time in college football, where he has a chance to make an NFL model, a sustainable model in college, like he wants to be an innovator that leaves a lasting impact on the game. He's done in the NFL. I think he sees this opportunity to do it at a school where his dad coached. And I think it's a great idea. I don't know if Michael Lombardi is going to be a great GM, but I love the thought of, hey, let's get great coaches to be on our staff, and then let's get a GM and give them a talent acquisition staff to get the players that they'll coach. Like that just seems like a smart, savvy idea that I think could be something we see pick up on instead of this weird thing where everybody's doing like the same job. That's just not a very efficient way to go about things. It's not a very, and I think that can lead to mistakes. So I like the direction that he's bringing to North Carolina in a league where Louisville and SMU taught us that you can win big and you can win quickly in that league and potentially get to the playoff.
I'm intrigued by it because he is the best defensive coach ever. North Carolina always has NFL dudes on defense, it seems, that underachieve. In that league, I think he could absolutely wreck some people on defense. But I think there's more than a decent shot that the offense is a train wreck. Like trying to run this pro style offense, like what does it look like? Can they get the people? I'm very fascinated to see because they're building an NFL front office where they're going to have a director of high school, they're going to have a director of portal, they're going to have a portal scouting staff, and that all those pieces are going to work together with Lombardi and Belichick while the coaches can just coach and they give them the players. So how does that all kind of work out? I'm fascinated to see. North Carolina seems invested to do it. This is kind of the league, I think, to try an experiment like that.
Mm-hmm.
How bad can it get? It's the ACC. Like the bottom of the ACC is bad. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I'm just very interested to see how it all plays out. Offensively, I've got some big questions, just how it works, who he hires to call plays. But defensively, I think they'll get good. And I'm very fascinated to see kind of how this front office is, I mean, for lack of a better term, that they're going to build the scouting mechanism, just how that works. And if it works, it could a lot of people could go towards more of a system like that. The only one I can really think of that has something close to that is kind of what like Florida tried with Napier. Like he's got strictly one guy that just does portal stuff that's running their organization. They've got a lot of resources tied up in high school recruiting. So they're doing something along those lines, but Napier kind of oversees it all, where this Belichick's overseeing it all, but there's going to be more of like a entrenched GM, I think, that's making calls and decisions. And some schools do have that, but not all. Most of them don't. And so just to see how that all works is going to be interesting, especially I think moving forward, there's going to be a lot of organizations, programs looking to like, how do we maximize this? How do we use it? How do we efficiently operate in this new space? And I think this could be a way to do that.
One school that isn't looking forward, they're looking back because they want to party like it's 2010. It's the West Virginia Mountaineers. We've got Rich Rod 2.0. We've got Shiano 2.0. The only thing we're missing is Bobby Petrino 3.0, and it'll feel like we're back in the Big East. I guess it's more like 2008. I guess he left for Michigan in 09 or 10. But West Virginia is bringing Rich Rod back. He left for Michigan after turning down Alabama. That didn't go well. He actually did all right at Arizona, and there was some weird stuff in the facility going on with a girlfriend or some weird stuff happened. He ends up coached at Kroger Field with the ULM Warthawks on Terry Bowden's staff, but
He
it's
did. I
been
forgot
good.
about that. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, yeah.
That wasn't that
He
long
coached.
ago, 4 years ago.
No, yeah, and then got a job at Jack State and has been really good there. Um, it'll probably will he be better than Neil Brown? I doubt it. It'll probably just be kind of middling. Maybe they'll have one big year, but Neil had a big year too. He had a 9-win season as well. So
Yeah, but also he will have, I would imagine, more financial support than Neil did.
yes,
There's
because
going to
of
be
what happened in the past.
a lot of important people are going to want this to work. Like, I think part of the reason, like, Mark Pope has got off to such a fast start is because I think there was a lot of important people who wanted it from a financial area, really wanted it to work. And so got the money to go out and spend and get players. Or I think West Virginia, you could see some of that. Well, there's going to be more of a financial commitment. And so that gives, I think, Rich Rodriguez probably a higher ceiling than Neil Brown.
Question for you. So there was rumblings about this for a while. We kind of saw this coming. I kind of thought Dan Mullen was cool with just doing TV. He seemed comfortable in it, and he seemed like he enjoyed chirping at Florida fans and trolling people with his pal Matt Berry, just like coming to defend him. I thought they had a nice little buddy cop thing going on. Were you surprised that he not only decided, you know what, I am going to get back into this, and that he's going to do it as a G5 head coach and not as a Power 5 play caller?
No, not necessarily, because I think once you're the boss, you don't want to go back to being not the boss.
Mm-hmm.
I also wonder, like, is the buyout money starting to run low? Like, are those checks all the way done? And then, UNLV seems like Odom put them in a good position.
Right.
It's a manageable league. I'm trying to think, are they in the Pac-12 or they
Yeah.
stay in the Mountain West? I'd have to look
I
up
don't know.
where they're exactly.
They're in one of those, but they do
So
seem like they're in a good spot, and you're going to live in Vegas, like that's
you playing in an NFL stadium.
Playing golf a lot. We know Dan loves to golf. There's great golf courses out there.
Offensively, it seems like they've built a good infrastructure out there with Brendan Marion. Mullen can come in, take some of those pieces, add some, coach there for 2 to 3 years, and then get a power conference job, I think is probably his goal. So from that aspect, I think it makes sense. I think he's still in his 40s. Eventually, you're going to want to go back to work. Yeah.
He can't be in his
sure.
40s. There's
maybe
no
50,
way.
51.
I mean, he was at Mississippi State for 15, 16 years.
52.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, you're right. He's got another run in him to the Power 5 level. He's replacing Barry Odom, who is the new Purdue coach. Barry Odom feels like a culture fit for Purdue. We'll see what he can do offensively. That's just it's always the biggest question mark at that school.
Intrigued by the hire. I think it makes some sense because of his offensive coordinator hiring background. Like, he's done a really good job, I think, hiring offensive coordinators.
Yeah. And he won. There was a lot of people who were pissed off that Missouri fired him because he did fine. It was never great. But you felt like he was kind of moving that program in the right direction. Really, Mark Stoops,
he was doing the same.
Stoops is the biggest reason he ain't there.
He was doing the same thing Drinkowitz did. It just, the portal era came, and Missouri, I think, got some benefits from that with some stuff their legislation did. They've got some money invested into the program where that never really came for Odom.
He didn't get that big bump.
Yeah.
All right, well, we got some good questions on KS Board that I want to get to. And one of these is, we've addressed a lot of them just by the nature of our conversations over the last 2 hours this week. If you didn't check out Tuesdays, we did a little twofer this week. I love this hypothetical scenario from Coffee All Day. It's December 10th, 2025. Mark Stoops is just like Kentucky to a 7-5 record, and we're getting ready to play in the Music City Bowl. What happened to lead us to this point? It's great because it helps us cover the schedule that came out last night as well. And boy, does that schedule make it look really, really hard to foresee a 7-5 regular season record and a return to the Music City Bowl. We knew the opponents, we knew where the games were going to be, but we didn't know that you wouldn't have a bye week after October 11th, and you'd have to finish the season 7 games in 7 weeks. And it all starts off with Texas and Arch Manning, Tennessee and Nico, at Auburn, who's probably going to get a good quarterback in the portal, and all their high school guys will be older. And then you is it Florida? Yeah, Florida's the last game of that 4-game stretch. It's not very forgiving. It's not very forgiving schedule. Basically, you're asking this team to win one of Ole Miss or at South Carolina early. Like, it's going to be tough. It's going to be really tough to get to that 7-5. That 7-5 that we saw as a low point, as underwhelming a year or two ago. They seem like not impossible, but probably the ceiling, I think, is that a hard ceiling, Luckett? Probably a hard ceiling for next year's team.
Like, okay, let's just walk through it. How do you get to 7-5? I think you would have to really hit some home runs in the portal. You would have to see some of these 2024 high school recruits take a big jump in year 2. And I think offensively, you would have to see some stars emerge, whether at running back or receiver. Like, you would have to see that happen. I think the second thing you would have to see happen, some of these teams on your schedule, I think, would have to implode, specifically their quarterback situation, where it would be a thing. Well, the schedule wasn't as tough as you thought. Well, maybe because quarterback stuff, maybe whether it be to injury or missing on a quarterback. Like, Ole Miss is going to have a new quarterback. Louisville's going to have a new quarterback.
Yeah. Does Ole Miss get DJU? You know, do they get
does Auburn mess up the quarterback thing again? And then third thing, I think you got to win. You have to at least go 3-2 on the road. Probably have to go 4-1 in road games, because your most winnable games, at least on paper, heading into the season, when you're talking about your power conference games, are on the road. So you're looking at South Carolina, figures to be really tough, at Auburn, at Vanderbilt, at Louisville, at Georgia. Throw the Georgia one out. Like, you would almost have to win those other 4, or at least win the last 3, which would be Auburn, Vandy, Louisville. So that's the path. I think you win those last 3 road games, win 3 non-conference. That gets you to 6. Get 1 at home. Beat somebody at home. 7-5.
It's only 3 things, but it is a lot of things.
It just feels very unlikely at this point. Again, you have to. I talk about all the time. You see schedules and you think it's going to be tough. Sometimes, a lot of times, it's never what you think. It can be tougher than you think, or it can be worse than you think. We'll have to see how it plays out. But just on the surface, it seems really, really daunting what they have to go through. And again, we still don't know what's on Kentucky's roster right now. But even if our best guess would be 5-7, kind of feels like to me, 4-8, 5-7 feel the most likely at this point.
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at as well. Fire Stoops, he's pretty active on KS board. He said, please talk about the idea of spending big on a running back with all the holes this roster has while getting Wilcox back. I just don't get it.
Great point.
For me, Mr. Fire Stoops, I understand the very popular idea that is how most NFL teams operate is you don't spend big for running backs because they're very interchangeable. The biggest argument to make is you need at least to have we need to do something well. And we've ran the ball well in the past. If we get one badass, I can trust to hand the ball off to this guy. Like, I can just trust to give it to him 25 times a game, and he can get 100 yards for me. We can at least achieve a baseline here of what we can be to create some sort of offensive identity. The whole while getting Wilcox back part, I just don't know what Jamarian Wilcox showed you this year that makes you confident in him being a running back 1 in the Southeastern Conference. There's potential. He flashed. You see it.
Sure.
You You don't see it on a consistent basis. And you know what? They gave him the keys a couple times. Sometimes he did well, sometimes he didn't. I don't think you should blame. It would be a bad idea to just look at the Louisville game and Cutter Bowie, you played bad, you threw interceptions. Jamarian Wilcox, you fumbled it. We can't have you around anymore. I think that's a bad idea. But I also don't think you can just completely throw it out either. You can't just mark a line through the last race like it when you're handicapping. You can sometimes, but not all the times. And like, we don't need to get into the details like it, but they're giving him lots of chances over there and betting on him to be staking the future of your football program and putting it in his hands is just not a good idea. It's not. Like you need more than that. And you also just need more bodies than that too. So I don't think is it the best idea? Maybe not, but like I can't just go into the season riding Jamarian Wilcox is my number one.
I think you have to have someone to build around. Like you have to have. I think that was the biggest problem this year. I think Dan Key did a good job, but it was just with the protection and quarterback issues, you just couldn't. It was hard for him to be a go-to guy week in and week out. Where running back, I think the path is more there. Kentucky wants to be run heavy. We've seen them have running backs who were stars and who carried the offense. So I get it from that aspect. I think running back position as a whole was a bit of a weakness last year. I mean, Wilcox came on and you saw flashes, but reliability was a big thing with him. Shoelace gate.
Yep.
Fumbling 3 times and 90-something carries. There was rumblings of potential, he just had some growing up to do.
Yeah.
And so that all of that adds up to a lack of reliability. So you can't put all your eggs in that basket. And then after that, you're just really young. Tavani Mizell's coming off a major injury. Jason Patterson showed glimpses, but you've got to find someone to come be your number one guy, I think. And that's what they're looking for. And we can argue about it. Is it worth the money? But I think throughout Mark Stoops' tenure, we've learned that when they have a true number one, when they have a 200-plus pound back who's playing the NFL, that's when they're at their best.
Yeah.
And this year, defensively, talent-wise, they're taking a step back. I don't think there's any denying that. Just look at the NFL players they had on the team the last 2 years on defense, where I don't think they're going to necessarily have that this year. So I think it's going to be really important that they get back to being a ball control, long sustained drive operation on offense. That can only happen if they can run the ball when they want to run it and churn clock that way and own the game that way. So to do that, I think you need a bigger tailback. And Wilcox is not that. He's not that 200-pound tailback that you can just turn second and 8 runs into second and 4 runs.
He always struck me as a second option as well. And I don't even know if second option is the right term. I mean, Boom Williams, he almost played like an every down back, but like they made JoJo Kemp do a lot of the heavy lifting in between the tackles, like Wilcox is I don't think you want to put a heavy work on him because he's smaller. He runs hard and he can break tackles, but he's more of an explosive player than it's 3rd and 3. Go move the sticks for us, buddy.
He's a good player, and I think he can be a feature back. It's just not right now.
Yeah, not right now. Notorious wants to know your thoughts on Bryce Pollock, Mr. Luckett. I think you're pretty high on that guy.
Yeah, really good player. I mean, he was one of the better corners in the SEC last year. I think you would feel really good if him and JQ Hardaway were your starting corners next year. But Kentucky's got to get a visit locked in. They haven't done that yet. So until that happens, I would say it's unlikely that he ends up here.
Hey, breaking news. Cats win. We're going to the Elite Eight, baby. Woo-hoo-hoo. Yeah.
Is Louisville still in this tournament, Nick?
They play tonight. So, and Louisville's hosting the Final Four. So, if if Louisville and Kentucky keep winning, they will play each other in the Final Four, which would be significant.
Yes.
Very significant.
Oh, and it's in Louisville, you said the Final Four is?
Yeah.
I would sell some tickets.
Yeah, my wife is a former Louisville volleyball player. We went when they were in the Final Four in Columbus, and it's pretty cool to be at like a volleyball Final Four. The tickets here sold out like that. Up in Columbus, it was pretty packed, and just going when you have all the different fan bases in one of those NCAA tournament events it's a lot of fun. So I'm looking forward to following the volleyball team around. Hopefully they can get it done and get back to the Final Four the first time since 2020. So shout out to Craig Skinner's squad. I'm trying to see, might get one more question in before we get out of here. A lot of people are wondering what Bush Hamden's plan is. Like, what would you say Bush Hamden's plan is in the transfer portal?
Fix the offensive line.
Okay.
Find a starting running back. Find a starting X receiver. Find a starting quarterback. I think they need a slot receiver, but I don't know how high that is on their priority list. And then
so a new offense.
But I think the offense is going to look structurally. I think it's going to look very, very similar structurally to what it was this year.
Well, that's not good. So a bad offense.
I think Bush, but no, those are just how they operate structurally. But I think execution-wise, they would execute better with their players, and O-line would be better, which would make everything else look better. But that's my guess for what it ends up looking like.
We got a long way to go. Short time to get there. I got nervous. I thought we had some more breaking news. False alarm. Not a commitment, but maybe there is one on the horizon. You got to keep your head on a swivel, Mr. Luckett.
Did the fake accounts get you?
No. It was just peeling behind the scenes, folks. We get a lot of our work done before it's actually done. So we got a commitment post ready. It's not that we have the commitment didn't happen. I thought we had one that happened. So
yeah,
we'll be on our toes.
The best posts I've ever written are these film rooms of Kentucky players that didn't commit. I mean, just absolutely.
That Dwayne Galloway one was definitely your best work. I got
absolutely game-changing stuff.
The Galloway one might have been the most frustrating one for me because I was writing it. It was 4th of July. I'm in Ohio. I'm working at a coffee shop, my wife's hometown. And I had just finished it. And then Wilt Fong's flip back prediction. I'm like, what the hell? We can't be doing this. Snip, snap, snip, snap. Just prediction here, prediction there. Make up your mind, kid. That one really got me because it was sometimes getting to 400 words can be tough. Just finished it when we got the word that he wasn't committing. But you know what? Such is life in this job. And in the words of Pat Kelsey, we got hot wives. We go to work in sweats. We get to stare at a computer all day. We got great jobs. Can't complain too much. So
one I think of is Christian Conyer. We did, we had probably 5 posts ready to go for that. And then I had to sit there and watch them cut an orange cake. And then I had to figure out, well, what the hell am I going to write about this Saturday? That just blew up.
Yeah. There goes my whole Saturday of content in the middle of the summer. Oh man, our boy, the longest announcement I think I've ever watched was Grady Judd's on Instagram Live. Our guy Grady Judd's back in the portal. He didn't play down. I don't think he played it down at
which is ironic because both of those I was at my parents' house for whatever reason.
Yeah, for some.
And I'm just sitting around the whole day waiting for those announcements, and they end up, one ended up being good, the other ended up being not good. But that is no crime from the John Boat, as I always say. No crime from the KS Yacht.
Ooh, we have a John Boat with a trolley motor. If you ever want to go for a little fishing, Luckett, it's not too far from your parents' house.
We got one out. We got a little, some type of rowboat or something, fishing boat for the pond.
I prefer usually just swimming instead of being in the boat. But I also didn't understand fishing. I was just like, what? Why do people want to do this? And then I had children, and I realized, oh, this is why. They just want to go somewhere quiet, maybe drink a beer and just stare. It's pretty relaxing. So I could go for some of that right now. Could really go for a little bit of that right now. We got to get back on the internet, though. It's been a pleasure talking with you, Mr. Luckett. Enjoy the football this weekend. We get some football to watch, and then playoffs starting up next weekend. So probably a few transfer portal commitments. So keep it locked in all of those, and we'll be back probably next Tuesday and Thursday with more 11 personnel. For Adam Luckett, I'm Nick Roush. See ya.